Level 1, F0, the Whisper. It starts almost like a joke. Not with a roar, not with flashing lightning, just a strange feeling in the air. A light funnel comes down from the clouds, shaky and unsure of itself, almost like a toddler trying to take its first steps. You see little things move first. A few leaves lifting off the ground, a plastic bag spinning in circles, a trash can rolling across a driveway like it got bored and decided to take a walk. Branches shake. Dust starts to swirl, but nothing looks dangerous yet. This is an EF0 tornado, the weakest kind on the scale. Winds are around 65 to 85 miles per hour, strong enough to get your attention, but gentle enough that some people don't even realize they're looking at a tornado. Survivors often say the same thing. It sounded like a big vacuum cleaner. We didn't even know it was a tornado until someone told us later. That's because an EF0 doesn't scream. It doesn't roar like the big ones. It just breathes. A slow, heavy breath that rolls through a neighborhood and keeps moving. Nothing dramatic. Nothing too scary. Just small signs that something unusual passed by. EF0 tornadoes are reminders. Not disasters. Not tragedies. Just gentle taps on the shoulder from Mother Nature saying, "Don't get too comfortable. I can do much more than this." And that's the part people forget. Even the weakest tornado on Earth is still a tornado. Still a piece of the same storm family that creates giants, the ones that can rip homes apart and reshape entire towns. A tiny spiral today, a little twist of wind that shakes your mailbox, might be the warm-up act for something far stronger tomorrow. F0s are whispers, but behind every whisper is a storm that can grow into a nightmare. Level 2, F1, the warning. An EF1 tornado is the moment the storm stops playing around. The sky gets darker in a way that feels heavy, almost like someone dimmed the lights over the whole world. The wind picks up a new attitude. It pushes harder, it grabs at things instead of brushing past them. This is when people look outside and say, okay, something's not right. The tornado that touches down now isn't shy or unsure of itself. It has shape. It has a purpose. It has power. Winds jump to 86, 110 miles per hour, and suddenly the storm has a voice, a deep, steady roar that you can feel in your chest. Now things start to move. Shingles rip off rooftops. Trees bend farther than they should. Fences shake like they're trying to run away. Car doors flap open from the pressure. Nothing is completely destroyed yet, but everything is struggling. This is the first level where real damage shows up, the kind you can't ignore. Imagine driving and suddenly your car gets shoved sideways by wind you never saw coming. Imagine looking outside and seeing your neighbor's trampoline lift off the ground and bounce across a yard like it weighs nothing. That's an EF1, still survivable, still mild compared to what comes later, but it sends a message: take me seriously. Some people think an EF1 is just a small tornado, but it's not. It's more like a warning shot, a reminder that the atmosphere above us can change its mind at any second. One minute you're watching a storm from your porch. The next minute you're watching your backyard turn into a swirling mess of leaves, branches, and flying objects. Nothing about an EF1 is gentle. It's not here to tease you. It's here to tell you that the storm is waking up, that the wind has found its rhythm, and that the next levels will hit much harder. An EF1 tornado is the doorway. Once you step through it, the levels that follow are stronger, louder, and far more dangerous. Level 3, F2, the housebreaker. An EF2 tornado is the moment the storm stops being a troublemaker and starts becoming dangerous. This is where the wind finds real strength. This is where the tornado stops acting like flying leaves and broken fences and starts going after houses. Winds now reach 111, 135 miles per hour. That's strong enough to turn everyday objects into weapons. A loose branch becomes a spear. A piece of metal becomes a blade. A trash can becomes a fast-moving hammer that can smash windows like they're nothing. People often say the same thing about EF2 tornadoes. This is the first level where we actually felt scared. Imagine being inside your home and feeling the walls shake just slightly, like something huge is walking past your door. Imagine hearing your roof creak and groan as pressure builds around it. Imagine hearing things hit the outside of your house. Thump, thump, thump. Not like rain, but like something angry is throwing objects at you. That's what an EF2 brings with it. This is the level where roofs start to lift. Not fly away completely yet, but rise just enough to terrify you. This is the level where big trees snap in half like they're made of chalk, where power poles lean over or fall completely, where cars shift, slide, and sometimes even lift a little off the ground. If an EF1 is a warning, an EF2 is a threat. You start to see real damage, houses losing large pieces of their roofs, kitchens and bedrooms suddenly open to the sky, cars thrown into ditches, garages crushed under falling trees, brick walls cracked open like eggshells, and the sound changes too. The storm stops sounding like wind and starts sounding like a train that refuses to slow down. Not a soft rumble, a deep shaking roar that rattles your bones. Survivors talk about pressure that feels like it's squeezing the air out of their lungs. They talk about ears popping, about feeling the house vibrate and wondering if the whole thing might lift off the ground. This level of tornado doesn't just take objects. It takes away your sense of safety. Because once you see what an EF2 can do, you understand that there are levels far worse than this. Levels that don't just break pieces of a house, they erase the entire structure. An EF2 tornado is when people realize, this storm means business. This could destroy our home. This could take lives. It's the first truly destructive step. The moment the storm becomes something you cannot fight, only survive. Level 4, EF3, the sky saw. By the time a tornado reaches EF3 strength, it feels like the storm has stopped hiding what it really is. Winds hit 136 to 165 miles per hour, strong enough to peel roofs off houses like they're stickers. Entire walls break. Teepees don't just fall, they explode into splinters. Everything becomes a flying weapon. People who've lived through an EF3 always say the same thing. The sound changes. It's no longer a howl or a roar. It's something deeper, meaner, like the sky grinding its teeth. Inside a home, an EF3 feels personal. The floor vibrates. The air pressure hits your ears. The house groans and cracks as if it's trying to hold itself together. Even people in basements can feel the weight of the storm above them. Footsteps of something enormous pacing overhead. There's a moment right before the tornado hits full force when everything outside starts moving the wrong way. Small debris gets sucked upward. Branches spin in circles. The air feels charged, almost electric. And then the tornado arrives and the world becomes noise, motion, and fragments. A real example of this kind of destruction happened in Nashville on March 3rd, 2020. It stayed on the ground for over an hour. The tornado caused more than $1.5 billion in damage, making it one of the costliest in U.S. history. Buildings in the city center were heavily damaged. Entire roofs were torn off and windows shattered. In a dense urban area, the destruction was especially devastating because there were more structures and less empty ground for the tornado to pass harmlessly. Another moment like this happened during the massive 2011 Joplin tornado. Parts of its path showed EF3 level damaged homes crushed in on themselves, pole blocks scraped down to their foundations, cars twisted around trees. Survivors later said the air felt too heavy to breathe, as if the storm was trying to pull the oxygen out of the room. EF3 tornadoes leave behind scenes that don't look real at first. It's the kind of damage where people walk out of hiding in silence, staring at pieces of their lives scattered across streets they barely recognize. The storm doesn't just remove things, it rearranges them, reshapes them, throws them miles away. And EF3 teaches you something important. This isn't just weather anymore. This is the point where the tornado becomes a force with intention, picking a path, taking what it wants and leaving behind a place that will never look the same again. Level 5, F4, the monster in the clouds. An EF4 tornado is the point where the storm stops being a natural event and becomes something almost mythical. Winds reach 166 to 200 miles per hour, and at that speed, the difference between strong and impossible disappears. Houses aren't damaged, they're taken apart. Trees aren't uprooted, they're shaved into stumps. Cars don't roll, they fly. People who witness an EF4 often describe the same strange feeling right before it arrives. The world goes quiet in the wrong way. The wind pauses. Birds disappear. Even the air feels still, like the atmosphere is holding its breath. And then, off in the distance, you see it, a massive funnel, wide, churning, alive. It's not a thin rope or a simple cone. EF4 tornadoes are huge, thick, and muscular. The base sometimes stretches wider than a football field. The sky above it swirls in colors that don't seem natural. Greenish, gray, brown, sometimes almost purple. Dirt, trees, roofs, and pieces of buildings spin inside the funnel like they're trapped in a giant blender. The sound doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in, low at first, rumbling like thunder that refuses to fade. And then suddenly it swells into something enormous. Survivors say it feels like standing next to a jet engine. Except the engine is angry and coming straight for you. Your chest vibrates. The air pressure crushes your ears. Every instinct in your body screams, "Get underground now." Inside a home, an EF4 pushes a structure to its limits. Walls bend, nails squeal, the roof lifts slightly, like it's trying to leave. Even if you're in a storm shelter, the ground above you shakes. Dirt falls from the ceiling. Objects clatter. You feel the violence above you even without seeing it. And then impact. The tornado hits with the strength of hundreds of bulldozers. Entire houses burst apart in seconds. Not piece by piece, the whole structure tears open, explodes, and flies away. A refrigerator can be thrown a quarter mile. A 2-ton truck can be rolled like a soda can. Concrete walls crack. Steel beams twist. A chilling example of EF4 power-struck Huntsville, Alabama, in 1989. The tornado ripped through neighborhoods so quickly that some families had only seconds to reach safety. Houses were reduced to piles of splinters. Vehicles were tossed across fields. A school building had parts of its roof torn off and walls bent inward like cardboard. People walked outside afterward and couldn't recognize where they were. The streets, the blocks, the landmarks were all rearranged. Another EF4 carved through Mayflower and Belonia, Arkansas in 2014. It tore away entire homes and tossed debris so far that county officials found personal items over 60 miles away. One family's bathtub, which they had used as shelter, was found nearly a quarter mile from the foundation. They survived, but everything around them was gone. What makes an EF4 especially terrifying isn't just the destruction, it's the speed of it. The tornado doesn't take minutes to destroy a home. It takes seconds. Imagine opening your front door and seeing the world rearranged like someone hit a reset button. Trees you've known for decades gone. Buildings you saw yesterday turned into piles of lumber. Fields stripped bare. Roads blocked by twisted metal and splintered wood. After the storm passes, the silence is overwhelming. No wind, no birds, no distant traffic. Just a heavy, stunned quiet. People come out of hiding slowly, stepping over debris, looking around as if the world has been rewritten. Standing in the aftermath of an EF4, you understand something. This level of nature doesn't just destroy, it redefines everything it touches. And there is still one level left. A level where the storm becomes something beyond even this. Level 6, EF5, when the earth remembers your name. An F5 tornado is the final line, the top of the scale. The moment where nature stops acting like weather and starts acting like a force that rewrites reality. Winds above 200 miles per hour, sometimes approaching the unimaginable. At this level, the tornado isn't simply moving things, it is disassembling the world. Even before you see the funnel, the environment reacts. Power lines buzz like tuning forks. Metal poles vibrate as if something invisible is pushing against them. Dust rises without wind. Animals bolt in one direction. They don't know where they're going, only what they're running from. And then the EF5 appears. It doesn't look like a tornado. It looks like the sky folding into itself, a thick boiling column wider than a highway. It carries everything it has touched. Trees spinning like matchsticks, pieces of barns, sheets of steel, farm equipment, gravel, dirt, entire sections of road. Inside the funnel, the world rotates faster than physics should allow. Survivors say the sound is the worst part. Not lightning, not trains, not wind, but pure violence, a sound so deep and powerful it feels like it shakes your bones from the inside. At this level, even the strongest materials fail. Steel tanks buckle like plastic. Tractors weighing tons roll and twist until they look like scrap metal. Train cars tilt. Telephone poles vanish. Railroad tracks shift from their foundations, something engineers once believed nearly impossible. And yet, the destruction of objects is not the real story of an EF5. The human stories are. Moore, Oklahoma, 2013. People running for shelter that no longer existed. When the EF5 struck more, many families were already running toward their safe rooms. Some never made it. The tornado moved too fast, too wide, too violently. Several survivors said the pressure change alone took their breath away, like their lungs were being squeezed from the inside. One man recalled crawling under a metal workbench in his garage. The next moment, the entire garage disappeared. He found himself lying in an open field, bruised, bleeding, but alive. The workbench gone. Parents searched for children who had been swept away by winds stronger than anything they could fight. Emergency workers walked through debris fields the size of cities, calling out names because street signs, houses, landmarks, everything recognizable was simply gone. Greensburg, Kansas. 2007, a town reduced to a map of empty squares. The EF5 that hit Greensburg didn't just destroy buildings, it erased the town. 95% of the community disappeared in minutes. People emerged from basements expecting to see debris piles, but instead saw scorched earth, empty foundations, and cars that looked melted. A firefighter described stepping out of shelter and recognizing nothing. It was like someone picked up my town and shook it out like a rug. He didn't know which direction led to the fire station where he worked. Every reference point was gone. Another survivor said she walked for 2 blocks before she found anything. She recognized a single mailbox, bent but still rooted in the ground. It became the only clue that she was walking through what used to be her neighborhood. Rich Creekmore. EF 51999. When the wind turned objects into weapons. In this tornado, wind speeds may have briefly hit 301 miles per hour. People hiding underground felt the storm ripping apart the ground above them. A woman who sheltered in a storm cellar said the pressure inside made her ears feel like they were exploding. She held her hands over her head as debris rained down the stairwell. When she emerged, her barn was gone. Her cattle were gone. Her vehicles were twisted beyond recognition. She later found a piece of her metal roof stuck deep inside a tree half a mile away. The strangest detail? Investigators found straw embedded into utility poles, not taped, not stabbed, but fused into the wood by pure wind force. Walking through an EF5 aftermath feels like stepping onto another planet. There are no sounds, no birds, no cars, no footsteps except your own crunching across debris. People look for loved ones with shaking hands. They shout names into fields where homes used to be. Rescue teams wander through miles of devastation trying to figure out where a street begins and where it ends. Emergency workers often say the hardest part is orientation. Even GPS becomes confused because the landmarks they depend on no longer exist. People lose medications, phones, wallets, vehicles, documents, the sense of direction, and the feeling that the world is safe. EF5 survivors often describe the emotional shock more vividly than the destruction. A teenage boy from the 2013 Moore tornado said something simple but unforgettable. I walked outside and didn't recognize the sky. This is what EF5 truly means, not just destruction, not just debris, not just wind, but life interrupted, life scattered, life cracked open in seconds. An EF5 tornado doesn't just hit a place. It changes it. The land, the people, the memory of the event, everything. And for many survivors, the world is always divided into 2 parts, before the storm and after the storm. This is the closest nature comes to absolute power, a force that doesn't just destroy objects, but changes lives forever. If there were ever a level 7, people say it wouldn't just be recorded. It would become legend. Level 7. F6. Plus, the storm that should not exist. There is no official EF6. There is no category above EF5. Not because scientists don't believe stronger winds are possible, but because at a certain point, measuring the damage becomes meaningless. An EF7, if such a thing ever formed, wouldn't be judged by what it destroys. It would be judged by what it erases. This is the level where wind is no longer just air in motion. It becomes something closer to a weapon, a force sharp enough to cut, fast enough to pulverize, powerful enough to rip apart things we once believed were immovable. To imagine this storm, you have to picture wind speeds over 300 miles per hour, maybe 350, maybe more speeds we've only ever seen in the most extreme tornado radar spikes. the ones meteorologists whisper about but do not officially classify. Before the storm arrives, the world would behave in ways that feel impossible. The ground might vibrate like a passing earthquake. Large metal signs could hum as if buzzing with electricity. Animals would flee long before humans sensed anything. Birds, cows, pets, wildlife all moving in the same direction as if guided by instinct older than language. Then the sky changes, not just in color and structure. Clouds twist into knots, layers fold into each other. The air turns a strange mix of green and black like bruised glass. And then you see it. A funnel so wide it doesn't look like a tornado anymore. More like a moving wall, a rotating cathedral of wind. At this level, the storm isn't throwing debris, it's sandblasting the world. Imagine a steel I-beam thick, heavy, designed for skyscrapers. An EF7 level wind could bend it. Not neatly, but violently, like someone tried to twist it by hand. Imagine a massive wind turbine blade 150 feet long, made of reinforced composite. Such a storm could snap it mid-air and fling the pieces miles away. Solar panels, even tempered and built for hail impacts, would shatter like thin ice. Highway signs weighing hundreds of pounds would tear off their poles and vanish into the clouds. Concrete medians. The thick barriers separating traffic could crack, shift, or be peeled from the asphalt. This is the level where ground itself may not stay in place. In an EF7 world, sheets of asphalt could lift and roll like cardboard. Topsoil could be stripped away in minutes. Farm fields would be scraped down to bare earth, leaving scars visible from far above. And the wind inside the funnel? It would behave like a blender built from gravity. Small objects become bullets. Stones become shrapnel. Raindrops hit like needles. Mud becomes liquid sandpaper, stripping paint off cars and bark off trees. Even underground shelters would shake. The pressure drop would be so intense that your body would feel squeezed from the inside. Your ears would ache. Your chest would tighten. Breathing would feel strange, as if the air itself is thinner. If anything could survive above ground, it wouldn't stay recognizable. A tractor becomes twisted metal. A shipping container becomes a crumpled box. A train car becomes scrap. A water tower becomes a broken skeleton. After the storm, assuming anyone could safely emerge, the landscape would look almost alien. Not damaged, not destroyed. Scraped, flattened, redrawn. Trees, gone or reduced to stumps. Cars, scattered in fragments. Metal, bent, folded, twisted into shapes that make no logical sense. Landmarks, missing entirely. The ground itself, marked with trenches where debris carved through soil at unimaginable speeds. If a storm like this ever touched down, people wouldn't talk about surviving. They would talk about enduring. About feeling a pressure, a sound, a force that seemed bigger than nature. Scientists don't classify EF6 or EF7 tornadoes because we've never seen damage that demands those labels. But physics don't forbid it. The atmosphere doesn't forbid it. And nature doesn't always stay inside our scales. A level 7 tornado is the nightmare version of the sky. A storm so strong that the earth itself becomes part of the debris field. A storm that doesn't just take what's in its way, but rewrites the very idea of what's possible. And if such a monster ever formed, the planet would remember it.